If you could just listen for a minute. They're going to get more chairs. If you could just, so I'm going to delay the meeting a few minutes until we look for more chairs. And then we have to do a fire safety count because this room has a certain capacity. And so we have to count the number of people in the room. So we're just getting the chairs now. There's a few more chairs up at the front. I noticed some people are standing, but there's about two or three chairs up at the front. All right, how's everyone doing out there? Almost everyone has a chair. Okay, I'm going to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting. And it's Monday, July the 13th, 2026 at just after 7 p.m. And I'll call on Councillor Marshall for the land acknowledgement.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The district conducts its business on the traditional territory of the Saanich peoples and works to be increasingly mindful of its commitment to more inclusive governance within our community. We are committed to building stronger working relationships with all Saanich peoples, and particularly working closely with Sakem and Pakwachin, our closest communities. As we look over our agenda for the day, let us be mindful of the potential implications that our decisions have on Indigenous peoples, and to consider the common interests we have with neighboring First Nations governments who are also making decisions and passing laws that support a sustainable region.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marshall. Now I'll move on to the introduction of late items. And I would, pardon me, like to add another late item, which is the rise and report from the closed meeting. And I have a verbal, just a second. Sorry, I've got so many papers here. So the addition to the late items is to direct the Chief Administrative Officer and the Mayor to draft a response to the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs requesting a 2-week extension, and that letter be sent to the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs no later than 12 p.m. noon on July 14th, 2026, which is tomorrow. So that's the addition of another late item to the late items which are listed in the agenda. And then I would like to ask for a motion for approval of the agenda with the late items. Councillor Marshall moves. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Then I'd like to call the vote on that. All those in favor? And Councillor Di Battista. Oh, I forgot to mention Councillor Di Battista is online. He's on Zoom, so sorry about that, Councillor Di Battista, but I'm recognizing you now. All right, so yes, Councillor Sanjeev.
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering if we can move 6D to 6A, please.
Oh, 6.
The public participation period pertaining to this matter be moved to 6A.
Oh, on our agenda, but yes, okay. So you want to have a switch around, you want to make public participation A, and you want to make the draft response number D, or letter D, I should say. Okay. So you want to include that as well in the in what we are going to vote on?
Yes, please.
All right. Councillor Shrivastava has asked for that, so I'll call the vote on that then for approval of the agenda with the late items and moving A to D and D to A in the unfinished business portion. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Now I'd like to call for adoption of the minutes. Number 5, minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held May 11th. Mayor? Thank you very much, Mayor. Could you?
Yeah, motion as read.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor. Now I'll ask for approval. All those in favor?
No, that's right. Sorry.
We have to have a vote.
No, I almost made a mistake.
All right. So now then we're going to move into the public participation period. And I have to read the preamble for everyone. A member of the public wishing to address the Committee of the Whole regarding an item on the agenda will be provided an opportunity to be heard by the chair. No member of the public will be heard before council has deliberated a matter or after council has made a motion on a specific item. No direct discussion between a member of the public and a staff member will be permitted by the chair. Speakers will be heard in the order that the issues appear on the agenda and speakers will be limited to not more than 5 minutes each. So that's a change from our regular meetings where it's 3 minutes. In committee of the whole, you're allowed 5 minutes.
Yep.
So, and also we're going to move, I forgot to say at the beginning that we're going to move into the regular meeting of council as soon as this committee of the whole is over. Thank you. So how many people would like to speak? All right, so I guess should we maybe form a line because there are a lot of people who wish to speak, and then begin our public participation. Thank you very much. And if you could state your name and address just before you speak. Thank you.
I'm live. Good evening. My name is Greg Warner. I live in North Saanich on Alder Road. I would like to express my concerns and suggestions for recommendations with respect to the draft letter to the Housing Minister from our Mayor and Council in response to the Housing Minister's letter to the Council of June 16, 2026, and the CBRE Independent Advisor Report. The CBRE Independent Advisor Report that was supporting document for the proposed directives and recommendations included in the Minister's letter to the municipality dated June 16, 2026, makes a number of significant recommendations that would fundamentally alter the planning framework established through the North Saanich Official Community Plan. These recommendations include extending the urban containment boundary, substantially increasing residential densities, reducing minimum lot sizes, expanding permissions for small-scale multi-unit housing, and permitting apartment development of up to 6 stories in selected areas. The CBRE report contains unsupported assertions, factual inaccuracies, or recommendations that warrant further explanation before they can be reasonably considered by Council. Concerns identified are as follows. Number one, many of the report's conclusions are presented without financial, engineering, demographic, or planning analysis normally expected to support recommendations of this magnitude. Number two, several recommendations appear to rely upon assumptions that have not been disclosed or quantified. Number three, the report frequently recommends that additional technical studies be undertaken after its policy recommendations have already been made. This reverses the normal planning process in which evidence informs policy rather than policy preceding evidence. Number four, finally, greater transparency regarding stakeholder consultation, supporting documentation, and technical methodology would strengthen public confidence in both the report and any subsequent decisions arising from it. None of these observations suggest that housing growth should be avoided or that the municipal planning should remain static. Rather, that emphasizes that significant policy decisions should be based upon transparent evidence, comprehensive technical analysis, and sound planning principles. The district's OCP was developed through an extensive public planning process supported by technical studies, infrastructure analysis, and land capacity assessments, financial modeling, and community consultation. If the province or its advisor believes alternative planning policies should be adopted, the supporting evidence should be made available for independent review. Planning decisions that will shape North Saanich for generations should be based on demonstrable evidence, transparent methodology, informed public decision-making. Accordingly, it is respectfully recommended that Council, number one, receive the province's letter for information only until the supporting technical documentation has been provided. Number two, request that the province and the CBRE release all technical studies, financial analysis, land capacity assessments, infrastructure reviews, and development modeling relied upon in preparing the report. Number three, request disclosures of the stakeholder consultation methodology, participant categories, selection criteria, and conflict of interest procedures. And number four, request the independent development pro forma referenced by the CBRE and direct staff to compare it with the financial analyses completed during preparation of the 2025 OCP. And number five, clearly state that the urban containment boundary will remain as it is and will not be extended into North Saanich. Number 6, direct that any future amendments to the official community plan or zoning bylaw be considered only after the necessary technical studies have been completed and made publicly available. In closing, I am willing to share the 19-page analysis supporting the concerns and recommendations should the mayor, councillors, staff, or members of community be interested. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Pardon? I'm not sure, I think we have to wait for that. Yes, sorry. Welcome to I think your mic is on, and so please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Diane Rife. I'm a resident of North Saanich. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that bringing North Saanich's official community plan to completion was no easy task. This council inherited a failed official community plan process from the previous council and faced the challenge of rebuilding public confidence. It required countless hours of work, transparency, and a commitment to seeing the process through. Tonight, I urge council not to undo that work. Instead, I ask that you send one unmistakable message to this province. North Saanich stands firmly behind its official community plan as written and the local planning decisions that this council and this community have worked so hard to achieve. First, I urge council to make it absolutely clear that North Saanich does not support any modification or expansion of the urban containment boundary into our municipality, no matter how minor some may deem that expansion to be. Please remove any reference to further discussions with the CRD regarding this matter from the mayor's draft response letter. Including that statement leaves the door open to something that should not be open for debate. The urban containment boundary belongs outside of North Saanich, and keeping it there is fundamental to the regional growth strategy. Our official community plan is not a barrier to housing. It's a deliberate, responsible framework that accommodates growth while protecting our agricultural lands, safeguarding our environment, and preserving the rural character that makes North Saanich unique. Second, the zoning bylaw should proceed immediately and exactly without any change as presented at the first reading. It was meticulously crafted to implement an OCP that council and residents spent years shaping together. Making last-minute tweaks or adjustments to appease provincial overreach would undermine our OCP and the extensive local planning process that took place to achieve it. You've already done the difficult work. You've created a plan that balances housing, agriculture, environmental stewardship, and community character in a way that is uniquely North Saanich. Now is the time to stand behind it with confidence. Send a clear message, a united message to the province that North Saanich does not support expanding the urban containment boundary into the municipality, that there will be no further discussions on that issue, and that council is moving forward with the zoning bylaws exactly as originally presented, demonstrates leadership and confidence in the planning process this community invested years in creating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, members. Terry Gould, North Saanich. I'd like to highlight two landmark dates to this council. The first is tomorrow's date, July 14th, the first anniversary of council's adoption of our official community plan, which excluded the extension of both Sydney's and Central Saanich's urban containment boundaries into North Saanich. It stated, housing and development demand for a 20-year period have been accounted for in this OCP as per provincial legislative requirements. The second date occurred yesterday, July 12th, which is the 6-month anniversary of the unanimous adoption by Council of a notice of motion called Reaffirmation of the Current Urban Containment Boundary. It was passed in anticipation of the arrival of the province's special advisor, dispatched to write a report telling us how we could meet the province-imposed housing targets, as if we hadn't just spent 2 years figuring out how to do just that in our OCP. Your January 12th notice of motion stated, maintaining the urban containment boundary as currently identified in our OCP ensures that housing is prioritized in suitable locations so that growth is balanced with environmental protection, agricultural utilization, and rural character. In other words, twice in the last year, Council affirmed that North Saanich had no urban containment boundary within its borders and didn't need any to fulfill the province's housing requirements. In fact, that phrase, urban containment boundary, is an oxymoron that really means urban expansion zones. If the urban containment boundaries in Sydney and Central Saanich were contained by boundaries, why are we now looking at them jumping those boundaries into North Saanich? Because that is what Housing Minister Boyle's June 16th letter to our district asks for. It contains a suggestion that we should develop 3 areas of North Saanich into dense urban zones, the so-called urban containment boundaries, with a combination of 6-story towers, 6-plexes and 4-plexes, plus allowing 4 to 6 housing units on single-family lots in much of the community. One of Boyle's urbanization zones encompasses the Dean Park Estates and Terraces area, extending from the shoreline to the border of John Dean Park. Another comprises the McTavish area, from the shoreline to far west of East Saanich Road. A third encompasses Sam Harbor, from the shoreline to the highway. This total of 7 square kilometers of new urban centers would have a density equivalent to development nodes in Surrey, with higher floor space ratios than those in Sydney and Central Saanich. If built as prescribed, the density changes will vastly exceed the province's own housing requirements for our district. Boyle informed Council that they should avoid the normal processes to amend the CRD's regional growth strategy by proposing that these extensive areas be handled as, quote, minor amendments, another grotesque oxymoron. She used that misnomer because BC's legislation allows, quote, minor amendments to the regional growth strategy to be fast-tracked without the approval of the CRD's 13 municipalities. In addition to suggesting major urbanization zone in North Saanich, Boyle is proposing shrinking the surrounding lot sizes in R1 and R2 zones by a third, inviting densification in most rural neighborhoods. In Boyle's proposed directives, if Boyle's proposed directives are not effectively opposed, it will only be a matter of time before all this urban and suburban densification extends its hungry pseudopods to surround and devour our precious heritage of agricultural land, which is why it was so disturbing to read this in Council's reply to Boyle. The district anticipates further discussion with the Capital Regional District regarding any implications for the urban containment boundary and implementation of the regional growth strategy. Why even open up for further discussion? Boyle's UCBs are recommendations, not yet directives. The OCP proves we can meet housing targets without importing Boyle's urban blob, 6-story towers, or shrunken lot size. We are the lungs of the peninsula, the green zone that is the breadbasket of the CRD in case of an interruption to our vulnerable food supply chain. In our district, we have over 4,000 acres of some of the richest farmland on the island, almost 1/5 of it outside the agricultural land reserve. That is why 3 of the objectives of our OCP emphasize that we must foster resilient food and agricultural system, keep urban settlements compact, and protect the integrity of rural communities. Don't give up those objectives without a fight. Prove to Boyle in a reply letter that we can meet her housing targets under our current OCP. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Terry Chow, and I'm a resident and taxpayer of North Saanich. I would like to speak about the Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs letter regarding the Housing Advisor's Report. I'm concerned about the financial risk of the 4 proposed directives and points listed under the enhanced reporting, including the urban containment boundary and strategic development areas, adoption of fixed-rate development finance tools, and the 6 development applications, including McDonald Park Road. In the last meeting of the Community Planning Advisory Committee, the interim director of planning mentioned that infrastructure funding promised by the provincial government through the growing community fund to assist communities in achieving the housing targets was slow in coming. Communities such as Tofino with brownouts and Soup with overcrowded elementary schools are some examples of communities that have significant new developments and suffered from infrastructure deficiencies. The District of North Saanich staff report correctly identifies the financial implications of the proposed housing directives, including staff resources and budget implications. Further budget implications and infrastructure impacts could include issues such as stormwater drains, road capacities, firefighting capability, water supply, sewage, schools, emergency services, and power. Most concerning is that Minister Boyle's letter does not provide any mention of financial assistance to North Saanich in meeting the housing targets, including affordable housing options such as co-op and Habitat for Humanity housing. The only mention of finances is recommending the adoption of a fixed-rate development finance tools for development cost charges, DCCs, and amenity cost charges, ACCs, to support infrastructure and services. These fixed-rate development tools are charges for infrastructure needed for new development, but a fixed unit rate runs a very high risk of underfunding the infrastructure due to inflation and operational difficulties, leaving taxpayers to pick up the rest of the cost. Significant increases in municipal property taxes from 4 to 10% and sometimes 50% or higher have been experienced in Vancouver, Burnaby, and Langford for upfront capital investments in schools, parks, and hospitals. The increase in taxpayer base from developments has been found to not offset the current and future infrastructure costs. I would urge the Mayor and Council to not accept any proposed directives at this time without further feasibility studies and discussions with the Housing Ministry regarding infrastructure costs. Thank you for your time and allow me to speak to you tonight.
Hello, my name is Shauna Goodrich, and I'm a resident of North Saanich and a homeowner here. And rather than having a statement, I actually have a question for the mayor and council members as elected officials. I really want to understand why we are relying on a U.S. commercial real estate and investment corporation to solve a local housing affordability problem. I'm asking all of you as the elected officials, how did we get here? And why is this not being kept within the community?
Yes, we can discuss this when we get into the next phase after the public participation. If you'll notice on the agenda, we moved the public participation to A, or number 1, discussing all of those kind of issues right after the public participation.
Okay, so
We thought it would be good to have the public say what they want to say first.
Okay, so I should come back up afterwards? No?
No, yeah,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yep.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Lorraine Solner, North Saanich. I just want to speak to one aspect of the changes in our municipality, that being the development of 10612 and 10622 McDonald Park Road. The BC Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs directed Council to proceed with this development of a 6-story apartment with 92 units. In May, however, 2004, the Minister of Water, Land and Air Protection sent a directive to all municipal districts to put in place flood hazard and land use management. These guidelines were intended to help local governments, land use managers, and approving officers to make land use management plans and make subdivision approval for flood hazard areas. The goals of these provincial guidelines were to reduce or prevent injury, human trauma, loss of life, and minimize property damage during flood events. Experience has shown that regulating land development keeps people and property out of harm's way and was the most practical and cost-effective way to achieving goals. OCPs must contain general land use policy statements and maps respecting restrictions on land that is subject to hazardous conditions. Under the provisions of Section 877 of the Local Government Act, plan policies and hazard schedules are required. Schedule 1.0, and there are many, administration, flood hazard land use goes on to include 1.1 OCP plans and various regulations, one being covenant measures or failure to comply sections. 2, floodplain map, which includes information in establishing floodplain levels. A floodplain map delineates the area that can be expected to flood over 200 years. Floodplain maps were developed under a federal provincial program from 1987 to 2003, which already showed acceleration under older provincial maps that commenced in 1974. This was sea level rise. In Appendix B, there are many forms, including Section 219, Covenants and Subdivisions to Consent. The North Saanich Bylaw 1130 in 2007 did amend the OCP. Maps were provided, numbers 1 to 10. And since that time, it showed flooding of that area. Since that time, several studies have regarding sea level rise, tsunamis, wave heights, etc., have been done. They all show the area for planned development on McDonald Park Road is in a flood inundation area. Drive by. The ocean is very close to that development. If you're going to change our OCP again, there must be 3 readings before it is asked. I ask Council to inform the residents before this happens, giving them details of flooding that can occur in the area and give them chance to respond. I hope that if the development occurs, Council protects present and future residents by placing a covenant on this property. Thank you.
Thank you.
We just need a motion to extend the public participation.
Yes. I'm sorry, just before you speak, we need a motion to extend the public participation period. Councillor Marshall, yes?
Yeah, let's say we'll extend it by 15 minutes. We can always extend it after if we need. So.
Okay, sure, thank you. And all those in favor? So that's approved unanimously that we will extend the public participation period by 15 minutes. Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Sorry, it's on there. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Richard Alexander, North Saanich resident, and currently the chair of the Community Planning Advisory Committee. Just a few comments that hopefully can share tonight. In terms of the BC Advisor Report, the letter received from the BC Minister and the draft letter before the Mayor. One of the main messages here is really to support community engagement. So I've been a volunteer. I've received one of these cards 6 times by Mayor and Council and by North Saanich. And I received one on April 21st. So from April 21st to June 15th, we now have the committees suspended and an investigation into some sort of misconduct. So those are concerning for the 21 members. And what I can say from the Community Planning Advisory Committee is that all members are still in support of Mayor and Council in doing the correct side of engaging with your community. And the same with North Saanich staff who've done an amazing job. In terms of the BC Advisory Report, maybe I'll start with this, is that in the May 5th meeting of the Community Planning Advisory Committee, and all the meetings are on camera. They're all documented. If there's misconduct, it's up to the community to take a look. But the chairs have not seen this kind of situation develop, and we are volunteering our times. In the May 5th meeting, North Saanich Planning Committee, the Planning Department provided the zoning bylaw 1606. Within that bylaw, it was presented that we would not only meet the housing targets, that we were going to exceed them. And the committee unanimously voted in support of this to go to Mayor and Council, which has gone through the first reading. And these advisory committees, as mentioned, they're volunteers, they're not decision-making, they're members of your community that's trying to provide advice. So the aspect of that May 5th is a very important meeting, because the advisory report was written, the date says April 1st, 2026. So, it doesn't seem like that information even made it into the advisory report or even was part of the BC Minister's letter. So the first 3 years that I volunteered, I was on the Community Planning Commission, and I was actually appointed as the community liaison from that commission to go to the MODIS workshops, that part. And the one aspect that came out of it was not having a clear understanding of how, decisions were being made. There wasn't a great process in that. There was good information presented by MODIS, and there was a lot of percentages and so forth. And as a statistician, there were sample sizes that were really small in there. That was reported to the commission. If you go back on those commission reports, you'll see it in camera as well as in the minutes. The BC Advisor Report really tries to highlight all the MODIS work that was done. And that part, I think if the commissions would have been engaged a bit more, perhaps the first OCP may have actually had more traction of moving forward and working with the community. OCP. So now we've gone through 4 years, and in those 4 years, I don't know what the cost is. It's like $300,000 in terms of how much it costs the OCP. This council passed it in July. And so the advisory committee meetings, we were aware when it got passed, there was an effort to ensure that we are going to make our housing targets and work with North Saanich on it. And so basically all the meetings, the document from February 3rd, April 7th, May 5th, June 9th, there's no evidence that the committee is trying to delay housing targets or against housing targets. If anything, the information shown on May 5th, unanimous support from all 7 members. And these members are appointed by you. They don't live next door to each other. We're volunteers. So right now, I see that the BC advisory report is misguided based on the interviews that were done. They're trying to target community engagement, these kind of processes that are here actually to support you. It's a good way for the North Saanich staff to present information, get that feedback, and then before coming before council, they might be able to tweak it, that part. It should actually speed up the process, not see it retract. So the June 9th meeting that we had at the committee with the new interim director of planning, we emphasized that at the meeting is hopefully the bylaws that are in first reading can go forward, because what we were told, if that occurs, we will continue meeting the housing targets. Whether these other directives that are coming from BC and advisory report get adopted or even considered, give the time for the community to really listen to them, to really engage. That's my feeling of one of the mistakes that was made in the first OCB process. I hope that North Saanich comes together for your community and your volunteers, because it's tough to go to my grandkids as are the other 20 individuals that have family here when you have these kind of misconduct before you. My last, in the 25 seconds, I want the community to really hear what the purpose of these advisory committees are. Purpose of this particular committee is to establish the active involvement of members to provide input to assist council with their community-focused decision-making, respecting land use, community planning, or proposed bylaws and permits governed by the local act. And I see my time is running out, but that's what we're doing. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Hello. Hello. I'm Linda McAdam from North Saanich. Here we are in North Saanich having a provincial government demanding, with input from the Urban Development Institute, an organization for property developers, that we double our population. The provincial government has even loaned us an outsider to rezone the 3 targeted areas. All of this is an egregious overstep by the provincial housing minister, which tramples over our democratic rights as citizens to determine the environment in which the majority of us wish to live. Such a huge population increase will be detrimental to many of us in so many ways. Longer commute times to Victoria, lack of parking in Sydney, cost of building more hospitals, schools, and recreational facilities. Stress to residents who find a townhouse, apartment building, or multiplex being built next door, resulting in noise, lack of privacy, and shading. And worst of all, especially to our farmers, is a future demand for more water. Will there be enough? Our water supply on Vancouver Island is limited. Already, some areas are experiencing drought. Yes, there are plans to access deeper water in the Souk Reservoir, which will require a new filtration plant at an estimated cost in 2023 of about $1.35 billion. That didn't take into account the doubling of North Saanich's population or other population increases in Greater Victoria as demanded by the provincial government. Global warming will eventually result in Mexico and California's inability to grow food for us. We will need more land in production to feed ourselves, and that land will require more water for irrigation. Increased population will obviously require more land for personal use. Will there be enough in future for even more farms that we might need? I also want to thank all of you for facilitating the process of developing the OCP. You offered multiple opportunities for us to come here and air our thoughts about what we wanted to see in North Saanich in the future. You were elected by a majority of people who want to keep North Saanich mainly rural and agricultural and that's what you all should be fighting for. So please, fight for our OCP.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr.
Council.
Thornburg.
A few words about democracy as it relates to small municipalities. The last year or two, our provincial government has been moving more and more to dominate land use decisions instead of leaving it to municipalities and municipal governments to decide if and how they will grow their housing stock and neighborhoods, and how they will protect their open spaces, streams, agricultural land, tree canopies, and parks. This amounts to a serious theft of decision-making power and thus a theft of our democratic rights and freedoms at the municipal level of the people who live here. And this is all related to a new restriction on our elected council. The council is now not allowed to make decisions on the hiring and firing of municipal staff. With the province now doing the bidding of the ultra-wealthy development lobby to shape changes to our OCP and the urban containment boundary, are we not creeping close to autocracy? I believe we are. Power to the people.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I would like to express my support for the Housing Minister's letter and the recommendations contained in the Provincial Housing Report. I found both to be balanced, reasonable, and thoughtful.
Excuse me, could you just say your name and your address?
Sorry.
That's okay.
John Renison, North Saanich. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll start again. I'd like to express my support for the Housing Minister's letter and the recommendations contained in the Provincial Housing Advisor's Report. I found both to be balanced, reasonable, and thoughtful. I appreciate that the province didn't take a one-size-fits-all approach. Instead, they recognized the work that had already been done through North Saanich official community plan process and focused on areas that the council had already identified as appropriate for future housing. Just as importantly, I appreciate that care was taken to protect our agricultural land. The recommendations concentrate growth in existing serviced areas rather than expanding into farmland. I believe that strikes a reasonable balance between preserving agricultural and creating new housing for our community needs. We often talk about protecting what makes North Saanich special, and I agree with that. But part of protecting our community is ensuring that young families, seniors looking to downsize, and people that work here actually have the opportunity to live here. Everyone speaking at this meeting likely already owns a home in North Saanich. And I think it's important that we consider the people who don't have that opportunity today and the generations that will come after us. In addressing a timeline, in 2024, if my recollection is correct, Council received a letter from the Housing Minister with a 30-day deadline and was able to respond within that time frame. I don't see why this situation should be any different, and I hope the Council will provide a timely and constructive response again. Finally, I think it's important to acknowledge how we arrived here. When this council took office in 2023, there was a commitment to complete the OCP in-house in an efficient manner. Unfortunately, that process experienced significant delays, coming to fruition in July of 2025. That's 2.5 years. In my opinion, if the OCP and the implementing zoning work had been completed as originally intended, it's quite possible that the provincial intervention would have not been necessary. I don't raise that point to assign blame for the sake of blame. I raise it because accountability matters. I hope Council will reflect on how we arrived at this point and work collaboratively with the province to move forward for the best interest of the community. I'll leave you with, well, two thoughts actually. North Saanich has developed a reputation for delay. Study after study, meeting after meeting, extension after extension. The province did not intervene because decisions were being made too quickly. It intervened because they weren't being made at all. This is an opportunity to change that. So please stop delaying, respond to the minister within the provided timeline, and let's move forward. Something that I heard people talking up here and asking, so nothing written on script here. How did we arrive here? And I want to address that. So redoing an OCP should not take 2.5 years. We had Modus working on this for several years before you took office. So several years working on an OCP. That was scrapped, no problem, let's start again. 2.5 years later before the OCP, and with that, a bylaw should have come shortly after. I was told by the planning department, Felice Mazzone, that in October 1st, I have an email from him, October 1st, 2025, the zoning bylaw will move forward. So what happened to that date? That date got moved to December. That December date got moved to March. That March date got moved to July. We're just moving deadlines, and this is why the province stepped in, and I think residents should have a good understanding of that. Thank you for your time.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Excuse me. Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Sarah Brost. I'm a resident of North Saanich, and I'm going to keep this quick because a lot of the points I was thinking of have just recently been made already. So the fact of the matter is the province wants us to densify North Saanich. As somebody who's been unfortunate to have to commute every day for the last 40 years up and down the Pat Bay Highway, it's a parking lot. The infrastructure is not there to double, to increase the population density by what they want. Our water supply is finite. Even though we get lots of rain in the winter, we only have a finite sized reservoir. As we bring more people in, that is going to be, we're going to have more and more. We right now have stage A water restrictions. It's only going to get worse. Hospitals, we don't have enough doctors. To the best of my knowledge, there are still a lot of families on the entire peninsula, well, the entire greater Victoria region, that do not have family doctors. So we're just going to bring in more people, but we don't have the doctors to back that up. Emergency wait rooms, 2, 3, 4 hour waits and longer. So before the province can come to us and tell us that we need to densify our community, I think we need to get more doctors first. We need to get more hospital spaces, more hospital beds, more senior facilities to house seniors who are in care. All those things need to happen. All the infrastructure projects, the province can't just say, let's just densify, let's bring in more people, but there's nothing there. Schools, everything, we're short on everything, and the province is not offering to help us with that. So until that happens, there should be no impetus on us to have to densify our community. And as I said, some of those points have already been made, but thank you for listening, I appreciate it.
Hello, Mr. Osborne. How are you?
Good.
Just before you speak, we need to have a motion again to increase the public participation. Mayor, would you like to make the motion for?
If I may, the people that still wish to speak, can you please put your hands up?
So.
5, make it 25.
20. Okay, so you are saying for 25 minutes?
25 minutes, yeah.
All right, so all those in favor of extending participation for 25 minutes? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. And good evening, Mr. Osborne, and thank you.
Great. So my name is Alan Osborne. I'm also a resident of North Saanich on Wayne Road. As with Richard, I'm on the Community Planning Commission that's currently not meeting. I was very involved in the OCP through MOCPAC and various committees. So what I have to say is very supportive of the OCP, and I support many of the comments that people have made with regard to the minister's letter being overreach. Absolutely, it's ridiculous. Many of the comments about the CBRE report, it's got all kinds of flaws. but I'm going to focus on what to do next. And what I have to say may be unpopular amongst some of my friends and neighbors, but I need to say it as a retired planner. I believe the letter to the minister in your draft agenda is the right approach in general, and it's Council's best chance to protect North Saanich from a minister that appears to be willing to gut our OCP and impose big property tax increases on residents. We're in this difficult situation for two main reasons. First, for years, North Saanich residents have been conditioned to believe that urban growth boundaries are inherently a threat to rural communities. And as a planner, a retired planner, I can tell you that in fact they do the opposite. They are used around the world to effectively protect rural communities from encroaching urban development. Now, there are good and there are bad examples, but in general, they can be useful and necessary to protect rural communities. The main argument that I've heard for keeping the urban containment boundary, the UCA, I'll use the acronym sometimes to save time, out of North Saanich is that it's a slippery slope. That if we allow any of North Saanich to be included in the urban containment area, it'll bring more urban densities. But the reality is that over the years, Council has allowed numerous developments, including townhouses and 3-story condos, that by any objective standard are urban. So it should be obvious that being outside an urban containment boundary has not prevented urban development from creeping into North Saanich. The problem with not having an urban containment boundary is that we don't have a clear line in the sand to define where urban development needs to stop. A well thought out urban containment area can do that. It's time to have a serious discussion with the CRD about an urban containment boundary that will provide long-term protection for the vast majority of our municipality, our forests, our farms, our rural neighborhoods. We need to stop kidding ourselves that 100% of North Saanich is rural and focus on our energy on protecting the areas that need protection. Now, rural, of course, is a subjective term, so I'm not naming neighborhoods. But by rural, I mean neighborhoods where residents perceive themselves to be in a rural environment. And that can be Curtis, Dean Park, whatever. So I'm not judging neighborhoods. I'm just saying there are some areas in North Saanich that in fact already are urban. We need to have that discussion. The second reason we have a problem is the mess created by the current Minister of Housing and the previous minister. And having worked for ministers of housing and urban affairs in the past, and I'm embarrassed by how the legislation they introduced and how it's been handled. The provincial housing legislation passed a few years ago was poorly thought out, developed without consultation, and poorly written. The confusion created, particularly around housing densities and urban containment boundaries, happened while we were updating our OCP. And as a member of the Housing and Planning Committee of MOCPAC, I saw firsthand how the housing legislation actually created confusion and delayed our process. We didn't have information, we didn't have housing targets, we couldn't complete our OCP on time. The legislation has many problems. First and foremost, it's based on a fallacy that Council has only one serious problem to deal with, housing. In reality, it overlooks that Council has many issues and many priorities that they have to deal with. You need to deal with climate change, something the current BC government has walked away from. You need to deal with protecting farms and environment. You need to deal with infrastructure challenges and protect taxpayers from enormous tax increases in infrastructure, especially infrastructure expanding into rural areas. When the housing legislation was passed, it threatened to force high-density development throughout a whole municipality if even 1 square inch of a municipality included an urban containment area. So that reinforced the view in North Saanich and elsewhere that urban containment boundaries were a threat and should be kept out of North Saanich at all costs. Eventually, the ministry sent a letter to North Saanich explaining that higher densities would only apply to those areas within the urban containment area, not the whole municipality. That was a huge change. Unfortunately, that clarification came too late in the OCP process after the consultations were all completed. So there was no time to go back to the community, no opportunity to go back to the public and explain the situation about urban growth boundaries and some of the options. Hence, the new OCP continues the tradition of reluctantly permitting more and more urban development on land in North Saanich, but still claiming we're not in the urban growth area. And now we have a minister who seems to want to make an example of North Saanich, based on a very biased and misleading report by a housing advisor who works for a development company. If carried out, the minister's threats would gut the OCP and would allow many, many times more housing than is needed to achieve our housing targets. Her threats would also damage the regional growth strategy by allowing more development in more rural areas. It would come at significant cost because the provincial legislation does not allow municipalities to charge developers for all of the costs of new infrastructure. Property taxes would have to increase to pay for expanding infrastructure, and potentially by quite a bit. Could you call the minister's bluff at this point? Sure. But unfortunately, the provincial government doesn't lose any political capital by beating up on North Saanich. In fact, they would probably calculate it's a good thing to do, because they want to be seen to be serious about housing and forcing municipalities to accept more and more housing. So you could call it bluff, but I don't think it would work. So while it may feel good and it may be tempting to stand up and just say no to the minister, thank you very much, we have our OCP, that strategy will encourage the minister to proceed with her proposals, which are much, much worse than we can ever imagine, that would jeopardize the OCP and increase our property taxes significantly. Given this, the smart thing to do is to negotiate with her and get a reasonable urban growth boundary in North Saanich that affects real urban development that we can defend with our services and our transit. Work with the CRD on an urban growth boundary that makes sense, and then defend it to the death. Not just let urban development creep into our rural areas as we've done over many years. The draft letter opens up that pathway to that discussion with the minister and with the CRD, and that's why I support that letter. There's no guarantee that it would work, but it's the best option I think Council has. If the minister isn't open to negotiating a more reasonable solution, then Council and residents will need to consider fighting back in various other ways, but the first step should be to negotiate. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bernadette Green. I'm a resident of North Saanich. I have to get my glasses.
I think we're going to trade places, if that's okay, while Bernadette finds her glasses.
Okay, if Bernadette agrees. I don't know.
Do you want it? She did say to trade. I'm not being pushy. Yeah? Okay.
All right.
We'll start again. And I have my glasses because I need them. Okay. Good evening, North Saanich Council and staff. My name is Karen Thomas, and I'm a resident of North Saanich. I relocated to the district from the Lower Mainland approximately 3 years ago. My main motivation for moving was to find a more balanced pace of life, and North Saanich appeared to offer this. I am a supporter of community involvement, so I was pleased to participate in the development of our current OCP, as well as join the Agriculture and Food Security Advisory Committee. I felt that my education, which is a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture and a Master's in Planning, and my experience as a former planner for the BC Ministry of Agriculture could be of some use to this community. Given the recent events, though, that have occurred within this municipality, I have to express my disappointment and my concern with regard to the direction that things seem to be going. The district of North Saanich, and it seems to be a debatable issue, but I think is wholly a rural community, and that carries great value in its own right. Our focus on agriculture, the environment, and the green lung benefits it provides to us and the surrounding communities cannot be undervalued. There are a number of well-thought-out reasons for why this municipality lies outside the CRD's urban containment boundary. As you well know, the majority of the Lower Mainland, as well as significant areas within the interior and Vancouver Island, have become significantly developed in an effort to supposedly meet the housing needs of our ever-growing population. And this development train does not seem to have any plans on stopping. Under the premise, whether truly believed or just as a ruse, that if we build more, we'll be able to address our global housing affordability problem. Here in BC, we have the federal and provincial governments undertaking condo bailouts, cutting development charges and inclusionary zoning, and forcing municipalities to develop plans and zoning bylaws that lead to the continual destruction of neighborhoods through densification. As more people become urbanized, many cannot or will not see the value in our so-called underdeveloped land.
And although our current OCP attempts to ensure more housing can be provided over the long term, it does not meet the satisfaction of our Minister of Housing. Upon reviewing the province's Housing Supply Act, I noted a few key things. Under Part 2, Section 3, it states that the minister must, in making a housing target order for a specified municipality, consider items that are noted A through I, and those include current regional district regional growth strategies, statistical information about current and projected population, and information about current investments in transportation. And it's not just to rely on a report made by an advisor. When it comes to a municipality complying with the targets, which is Part 4, Section 7, Sub 1A, the minister must consider information that was not available when the housing target order was made. And in North Saanich's case, we did not have an updated and completed OCP. Despite our newly adopted OCP, including provisions to provide for future housing, the advisor's report that has been presented makes recommendations that far surpass the original housing targets set by the minister. If the minister chooses to issue a directive to amend our OCP and zoning bylaw so that it favors the advisor's report, I'd like to know, based on Section 11, Sub 2A of the Housing Supply Act, how is this directive in the public interest? What public are we referring to? In the rush to build a strong economy, build Canada strong, build more profit, whichever way you want to look at it, we are ignoring the threat that will not disappear, the threat that is changing how we live our daily lives and one that will only continue to grow. Unstable weather patterns, rising temperatures, fires, floods, droughts. These issues are impacting our food supply, our health, affordability, and our standard of living. Our current official community plan for the District of North Saanich was created in an effort to address these issues. Our rural community in its current state is better set up by its very nature to weather these storms, so to speak. To conclude, I urge Council to protect this community and demonstrate to the Minister that the District of North Saanich is valuable in its current form and should continue to be maintained as such. The District of North Saanich is a rural asset to the entire province of BC. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try again. Sorry about that. My name is Bernadette Green. I'm a resident of North Saanich and a former farm market grower. Much has, Mayor and Council and Minister Boyle, thank you for the chance to speak to you today. Much has been said in the housing conversation about housing diversity. What is not readily acknowledged is the importance of a housing type that North Saanich provides and is almost impossible to find in urban areas. That is, large lots that allow residents to have a yard, trees, vegetable gardens, small farms, livestock, bees. These are important because a surprising amount of food can be produced on a small area of land. Some local farmers are able to achieve sales of produce of $1,000 or more, $100,000 or more on 1 acre of land intensively managed. Large rural lots are also where our future farmers come from. They're the children who join 4-H or sell eggs and vegetables on a stand outside their house. It's where the seeds, literal and figurative, of our future farmers are sown and nurtured and come to fruition. Nearly 60% of BC farmers are over the age of 55 and could be retiring in the next 10 years. Who will replace them? The global food system is being chipped away for a variety of reasons, many of them development-related. It's imperative that we build our local food system and protect our farmland. Why should we expect any other region to protect foodlands to feed us if we do not do it to feed ourselves? That is the height of recklessness. Shifting our focus to housing from feeding our community will undermine the optimization of the productive potential of our agricultural land. It will move us away from the CRD goal of increasing agricultural production in the region by over 12,000 acres by 2038, while adding tens of thousands more mouths to feed and further straining our current food system. Density advocates, many of whom stand to profit financially, will tell you that rezoning for higher densities is just good long-range planning. But without planning for all the other things that we need for a good quality of life, doctors, hospitals, food lands, farmers to grow our food, schools, water, sewers, roads, police, firefighters, etc., how good or long-range are those plans? So what is good long-range planning? It's the establishment of the ALR in 1973 by the NDP government of the day. That recognized that we were losing our agricultural land to development at the rate of 10,000 to 15,000 acres per year. The reasoning was sound, the ALC Act was considered visionary, and as a result, the loss of prime agriculture land was reduced by over 90% per year. That's a great example of a success story where a land use is designated and then the plan is stuck to. And now we have a very precious asset that is the envy of many countries and other provinces. 40% of North Saanich is agricultural land, but that land's productivity is now threatened in many areas by the poorly thought out recommendations in the advisor's report and, ironically, the NDP government itself. As we see throughout the region, density near agricultural land causes significant problems for farmers, which are very difficult to fix. Farmers have complained for years about serious flooding from development runoff uphill during weather events, which destroys crops. Neighbor conflicts are another concern, and McMansions being built on good farmland or speculative buying are driving the price of farmland out of reach of farmers who actually want to farm the land. Even if the ALR land is there, if the farmers can't access it, they can't produce food for us. Good long-range planning is also the establishment of the regional growth strategy and the urban containment boundary, negotiated over a number of years and finally agreed upon by all 13 CRD municipalities. It recognizes that communities and regions need more than just housing. They need agricultural lands to feed their residents, natural areas and forest canopy to act as the lungs for the region, clean water, healthy oceans and other ecosystems, and a recognition that all these things work together for a thriving and healthy region. Good long-range planning is recognizing that rural and urban sensibilities do not cohabit easily and should be kept apart. Otherwise, urban sensibilities tend to prevail and the rural and agricultural values are threatened. This is why the regional growth strategy kept the urban containment boundary outside North Saanich. Good long-range planning is a well-thought-out official community plan that takes into account that the region works best when each municipality does its part, according to its assets and attributes. The North Saanich OCP took years to complete, but it included input from hundreds of residents and organizations based in the community and was supported by the majority of residents. Mayor and Council and Minister Boyle, please protect our agricultural land and OCP, give them a chance to work as they were designed to, and please strive to help the Housing Ministry to understand the tremendous value of what North Saanich brings to the region. Thank you.
I think they're trying to keep the doors open. What? Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, my name's David Balaban. I'm a resident and taxpayer of North Saanich. I want 3 concerns on the public record. First, the officer's bylaw. Bylaw number 1609 reduced the district's officer's position from 7 to 3. Residents were not told what changed, we were not told why it was so urgent, and we are not told why this public governance change relied on an in-camera session. I asked Council, the Mayor, one question. What specific section of Section 90 of the BC Community Charter allowed this? No answer. One councillor replied that council knew the reasons, but residents could not be told. And that is the problem. Confidential details may belong in camera, public governance does not. Trust us is not transparency. If the council will not answer residents, perhaps it will answer to the ombudsperson who has already received my complaint. Second, public accountability. Councillor Stock brought forward a motion to restrict what residents may say about staff at open meetings. No one is asking for personal attacks, but residents must be allowed to question staff reports, spending, process failures, and administrative decisions. That's not an attack, that's oversight. Yet this council stopped 3 volunteer committees before any visible investigation, findings, or fair chance to respond. And they went public without any explanation. That looks like guilty until proven innocent, and that is not fair process here in Canada. Council cannot demand protection for staff while denying fairness to residents who volunteer their time. That's not accountability. That is institutional self-protection. Third, financial transparency. Page 63, if you're looking, the 2025 annual report statement shows about $8 million in contracted services. I asked for a line-by-line breakdown, not slogans. I'm not really interested in how many awards the district wins for financial reporting. I want details. What was purchased, from whom, and for what purpose? Council, the mayor, and the CAO have not responded. Residents should not have to guess what sits inside an $8 million expense category, 31% of all expenses. In closing, in-camera rationale for public governance is not transparency. Restricting residents from questioning administration is not accountability. Withholding financial detail is not stewardship. Leaving volunteers under a cloud is not integrity. And not responding to residents' emails is not service excellence. And oh, by the way, those aren't my values. They're the district's. Page 4 of the annual report. October is coming. Residents are watching. Council and staff need to practice the values that they publish. Good evening.
Councillor McConkey's just reminded me that we've run out of time, sir. If you could just wait, we'll have another motion for an extension for, Councillor McConkey will make the motion for 50. How many more people? Could you please raise your hands if you wish to speak? 4 and okay, 20 minutes. Is that your motion, Councillor McConkey?
Yes, that's the motion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All those in favor? All right, please proceed. Thank you. We have another 20 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Michael Hall and I live at 1620 Barclay Place in North Saanich. Tonight, Council has before it 3 important documents: the Provincial Advisors Report, Minister Boyle's June 16th letter, and the district's proposed response. I'd like to offer one observation about the relationship between those 3 documents. For me, the Provincial Advisors Report is not fundamentally about housing. It is about governance. The advisor did not identify a housing problem. He identified a governance problem. Specifically, he identified a structural misalignment between the district's stated planning objectives and the planning framework intended to implement them. I would suggest that this is the report's central finding. For context, I have lived in North Saanich for more than 20 years and have followed the district's planning discussions throughout that time. What struck me most about the advisor's report was that I found its diagnosis both illuminating and unsurprising. It helps explain why our community has returned to many of the same planning debates over the years without ever resolving the underlying issue. What impressed me most about the report is that it does not challenge North Saanich's desire to preserve its rural character, nor does it suggest that the district abandon the planning objectives expressed in the 2025 official community plan. Instead, it asks a much more fundamental question. Are the district's policies, regulations and governance arrangements actually aligned with the planning objectives that Council has already adopted? Minister Boyle's response is, in my view, measured and proportionate. She has not directed Council to implement every recommendation contained in the advisor's report. Instead, she has issued 4 targeted directives and 5 enhanced reporting requirements intended to begin addressing the governance issues identified by the advisor. Having carefully read the district's draft response, I was struck that it devotes considerable attention to implementation, infrastructure, process, and timing. Those are all legitimate considerations, and they deserve discussion. Those are indeed important issues, but they are downstream issues. The advisor's report begins somewhere else. It begins with governance. It asks whether the district's planning framework is actually aligned with the objectives expressed in the 2025 official community plan, the regional growth strategy, and current provincial legislation. To me, that is the question that deserves to be answered first. If we begin by debating implementation before fully engaging with the governance issue identified by the advisor, there is a risk that we once again become focused on symptoms rather than causes. One example is the urban containment boundary. The advisor identifies alignment between the OCP, the regional growth strategy, and the urban containment boundary as foundational. The minister's first enhanced reporting requirement asks the district to engage with the CRD on that issue. Yet the draft response refers only briefly to further discussions with the CRD regarding the implications for the urban containment boundary and implementation of the regional growth strategy. To me, that illustrates exactly the governance issue identified by the advisor. An independent review has now identified a structural misalignment between the district's stated planning objectives and the planning framework intended to implement them. The accountability now rests with this council, not simply to respond to the minister's directives, but to engage carefully with the advisor's diagnosis and with the broader recommendations contained in his report. For me, the greatest value of the advisor's report is that it gives this council an opportunity to move beyond long-standing debates and focus instead on aligning the district's planning framework with the objectives it has already adopted. I sincerely hope Council will seize that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, okay.
It's Alex Marr. I'm from North Saanich. There's much talk about the OCP, but I think one of the more important documents is the regional growth strategy. It was developed for the long-term land use plan back in the 90s when I was involved in that to quite a degree. And at the time when it was initially proposed, I thought, boy, how are we ever going to get a long-term land use plan that encompasses all the different aspects of the CRD between Metchosin and Oak Bay and Esquimalt and downtown Victoria, and get what's desirable for one section to be desirable for the long term for the whole of it. And I was quite surprised that they, you know, literally tens of thousands of people had input. And then the government spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to sharpen this thing through to come out with a final land use plan. That plan has been in place, and it's an integrated plan. It's not like this part over here and this part over here. It's like for the whole region. And two fundamental principles of that thing that have stood the test of time. One, keep urban settlement contained, and B, preserve green space. And this attempt by the local provincial government to just disregard that, disregard OCPs, disregard municipal councils, disregard the desires of people to elect councils that represent their interests and people that are hired by them that understand the desire of the community to preserve the rural nature here. To move that urban containment boundary should be a definite no. Just, that's not ever gonna, if you move it, you're never gonna be able to reestablish it and say, oh, geez, we made a mistake, let's rethink this and move it back. You have a responsibility. You've been elected by people who listened to you and voted in favor of the things that you said, and the overwhelming, I mean, I've seen councils come and go, I've seen staff come and go, I've seen provincial governments come and go, but one thing that stayed steady is the desire of the residents of North Saanich to retain the rural nature of the community. They see the value of it, and they see the threats to it. And I think it's up to you to say unequivocally, we have something here, we can work through whatever this present provincial government has made as a demand on the community. We can work through that, but we won't be able to ever get back what we lose if we move the urban containment boundary. Thank you.
Is there still time? Last but hopefully not least. First of all, I want to express my deep gratitude to each of you for allowing all of us who have chosen to speak to be able to stand up here and speak. That's a privilege, so thank you very much. My name is Lori Kelly. I'm a resident and taxpayer in North Saanich, and I'm here to speak to the draft letter and the Housing Advisor Report. As mayor and councillors, you were voted in and tasked to be the community advocators and negotiators to ensure the urban containment boundary and the official community plan are untouched. The government plays the short game, 4 years to be exact. A rural agricultural community plays the long game. In fact, there are generations that have chosen North Saanich for their forever roots, so we really do play the long game here. Now the community roots are being shaken to the core. And so am I as I read this. Before any project ever starts, one needs to determine who is the audience, who is the end user of this project. One does not go into it with speculation and the vision of massive wealth, or do they? The Urban Development Institute picked their target and lobbied them intensively over high-density housing. Their target happened to be the housing minister, who I am guessing is a great human, just doing the job that her boss has requested of her. And now North Saanich has become the target. And it's important to give some background to who will be affected in North Saanich and who are the residents of North Saanich. 34.7% of North Saanich residents are seniors, 65 years and over. 18.4% are pre-retirees, 55 to 64. 27.3% are 25 to 54. That's considered the working age group. Again, 27.3% of North Saanich are the workers. 8.3% are youth and young adults, and 11.4% are children under 15. Seniors are downsizing, and in some cases moving to care homes. Pre-retirees are looking at downsizing, certainly lowering their mortgage or rental costs to save for retirement. Neither of these groups will be interested in the housing or need the housing. Canada Mortgage and Housing qualifies affordable housing as something that costs less than 30% of the household's income before tax. If you take someone in North Saanich who's making $70,000 annually, that means $21,000 a year on a mortgage or rent. In North Saanich, you will not find a house or mortgage or rent that qualifies for that explanation of affordable housing. Is the provincial government going to act as the developer and assume all the costs of building? I think it will be a huge challenge to find a developer who will purchase the lot, build the high-density housing at a huge loss, because if they did that, they won't be in business for long. The average lot in North Saanich costs $700,000 to over $1 million. Building costs are $350 to $700 per square foot. On top of the building costs, there are permits and DCCs, which are roughly $20 to $30 per square foot on top of the building costs. Then there are the soft costs, design, engineering, site surveying, at least another 10% on top of all of those costs. The infrastructure costs of sewer lines, roadways, electrical, more police at $185,000 per year for one RCMP officer. The new fire trucks with higher ladders, more equipment, more training, more firemen to protect the 6-story high-density multifamily buildings, which we do not currently have. The infrastructure costs to a rural agricultural community are staggering, and every tax-paying resident will see a massive increase to their taxes, which they will not be able to afford, because right now the provincial government is saying we are going to be paying for that. And how do you, in good conscience, tell the majority of seniors in North Saanich who are on a fixed income, a lot of them no doctor, food insecure, suffering from social isolation, that on top of all of that, they will also be paying thousands more per year for high-density housing that, quite honestly, no one can afford, and most likely will sit empty. In closing, does North Saanich need affordable housing? Absolutely, as does every other municipality in the province of British Columbia, with the key emphasis on actual and real cost affordability. It is my hope that this municipality is given some breathing space or time to allow our new official community plan that allots for housing increases to actually come to fruition and grow the community of North Saanich by and for the community in a responsible, cost-affordable way. And if the housing minister would like a personal tour of North Saanich so she can meet the residents and see why our new OCP and why the UCB matters, then I would be happy to give her a personal tour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Graham Williams, North Saanich. I'd just like to say a couple of things. First, you got a lot of comments tonight, which I strongly endorse in keeping the urban containment boundary as it stands. But what I'd really like to focus on is on the way forward. I was quite surprised how fast the minister responded to the development consultant's report and parroted just a lot of their findings within 1 week. It makes me wonder whether she's ever even considered the fact that the OCP as it stands has been developed with a lot of effort, and if allowed time, would meet the commitments of the housing requirements as dictated by the province. So, you know, you've heard two opinions tonight. One is that you challenge it, challenge them and go head to head with that, but that could just make them double down on it. So I believe the way forward might be negotiation, and your letter certainly makes clear that you'd like a bit more time and you want to move forward with discussions. But as part of those discussions, I think face-to-face with the minister and maybe educating her on what our community plan actually allows for. So, you know, I believe they're just going through a quick process of just parroting back, feeding back the advisor's reports, which are flawed, as many people have said. So I think your letter is trying to lead forward to a negotiation. I think it could be toughened up a bit and make clear that it's an overkill and that the official community plan, if properly followed, would in fact help to give you a good chance of meeting the housing targets. So that, for what it's worth, you've got a lot to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Susan Chandler, North Saanich. I actually wasn't going to speak tonight, so I have to kind of fit things together. It's true that we can negotiate, but I just want us to consider one thing. What we're experiencing is not new. It is a pattern and approach that is repeating itself across the province in many municipalities. Essentially, local interests, the residents who live here, who live, work, play, pay taxes, their interests are set aside in the interests of large development companies and real estate interests. So this is how the pattern goes as I've observed it. Local OCPs are set aside by provincial directives in partnership with large development interests. The governance structure is changed and power is concentrated in a staff person away from elected officials. A rurally focused planner is replaced by an urban focused planner. And when questions are asked, difficult questions, during public participation, residents are shut down and not allowed to speak. Our advisory councils are shuttered under a cloud with no explanation. That's 21 residents. And now we're forced into a deadline and decision. So it's true that we can negotiate. But at what point do local councils across this province stand up to a province that is overreaching and, in my opinion, bullying? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other residents who would wish to speak? Pardon me, I'll ask a second time. Are there any other residents who would wish to speak? Well, seeing none, then I will close the public participation period for this evening, and we can move on to the second part of the participation process, which is the unfinished business of the draft response to the proposed housing supply directives, and also council discussion and deliberation. And our council discussion and deliberation will be around everything we've heard this evening from you, our residents, and also around the draft response to the province, which is part of our agenda. So, Council, how did you wish to begin? Would any councillors like to begin the discussion? And I do remember that just let me get my notes, that we were asked a question about how did we have an American company who was doing and conducting the assessment and report. And I think, Mayor, would you like to begin with that perhaps and respond?
Yeah, certainly, if Sean is still here.
Thank you.
Again, the question was why CBRE? The district had no idea who was going to be engaged. What we anticipated which was the same that happened in Oak Bay, the same that happened in West Vancouver. It was an ex-municipal employee that went in and okay, is that better? Okay, sorry. Yeah, with Oak Bay and West Vancouver, it was a retired municipal employee that went in and undertook the review. That's why when we heard it was going to be CBRE, I was completely surprised and certainly didn't agree with it, because CBRE is a development or helps developers develop. It's not a North Saanich type of situation. So it was the province that made that decision. We had zero input to it, and all we could do was see what report they came out with.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I was wondering, Councillor Di Battista, would you like to say anything first? Because I know it's not so easy to be on Zoom since I've participated on Zoom myself. And perhaps you would like to, speak up first, and then we could go to Councillor Marshall and go around the table, the dais. Thank you. Or if not, I could begin with Councillor Marshall, maybe.
No, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to start with Councillor Marshall and see the comments of my fellow councillors, and I have some comments, but I'm happy to wait.
Okay, Councillor Di Battista. Thank you. Councillor Marshall, would you like to begin?
Sure, that sounds like it's over to me. So, okay, let's start. I'm just going to make some really brief comments, and then I'd like to hear sort of what the rest of council has to say. But first of all, I think it's great that we have to look at how many people can fit in this room, and we have to figure out if we're not over fire load, because people are passionate about the community they live in, and they're willing to come out and speak. It's not easy, and it does, whatever side you're on, whether you agree with something or don't agree with it, it's important that we hear from our community. We've heard tonight that why are we going to delay anything? Why are we going to wait? Just answer it, hurry up and answer it. It is vitally important that we hear from the people that live here. That's why we're all sitting here. And I appreciate everyone that came out and spoke. And all the comments that you have, I've written them down. You see me sitting here and writing, because that is extremely important. And our response back to the minister is not just our voices, it is your voice. So thank you again for coming out. And I am happy that we are taking time to consider what we're being told before we respond to the minister. That is what democracy and government is about, should be about, especially at the municipal level. So I'll start off with that and see what everybody else has to say, and then I have some specific comments beyond that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marshall. And Councillor Shrivastava, would you like to comment next?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Marshall, for that. And personally, thank you everyone who has taken the courage to speak to us and to all the viewers online. It's always a challenging issue when the control of the process is not with us, yet we have to make the decision. I will go on to go through the thought process that I've gone through in explaining where I see and where I am with this particular issue. Firstly, let me begin know that there is enough information being transmitted around. Supporting housing through responsible integrated planning has to be the approach that we go through. The North Saanich is committed to expanding housing opportunities and recognize that increasing housing supply is essential to the social and economic well-being of our province. At this time, local governments are entrusted with balancing multiple public interests, including environmental stewardship, infrastructure capacity, climate resilience, agriculture preservation, fiscal sustainability, public safety, and community well-being. The Council comments are therefore offered in the spirit of partnership and shared responsibility. Our objective is not to oppose the provincial housing mandate or agenda, but to ensure that the implementation strengthens communities while respecting the long-term planning framework that municipality has developed in collaboration with the residents. The district's official community plan as an integrated planning framework. In 2025, following the extensive public engagement and consultation, which several of the speakers have spoken about, the Council had adopted the official community plan bylaw number 1587. The OCP reflects a comprehensive and integrated approach to sustainable community planning, rather than treating housing, infrastructure, transportation, agriculture, climate adaptation as a separate policy area. The plan recognizes that these systems are fundamentally interconnected. And as part of that, within the OCP is well embedded the donut economic framework, which seeks to achieve strong social outcome, including housing, while operating within the ecological limits and ensuring the long-term resilience of community. This approach aligns closely with the provincial's broader objective of creating completely healthy and sustainable community. I can carry on, but I would be happy. Should I continue? I've got enough material to go through.
Councillor Shrivastava, I was noticing your notes, so I perhaps we should turn to Councillor. I'm not saying that I'm cutting you off.
Yep. I'm happily giving up because I've got later to have more issues to talk about.
I know, but I would like to hear from Councillor McConkey and also from the Mayor, and I might have a couple of comments at the end. Thank you very much, and thank you for your comments. Councillor McConkey, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone who took the time today to come to either sit in chambers, speak to us, and share your thoughts and concerns. And the one thing I did notice is it was very, very similar in nature, and certainly something that came through loudly and clearly was the desire to ensure that we keep an urban containment boundary outside of North Saanich, and I support that as well. I wasn't sure what our format was going to be tonight. I have lots of comments I would like to make as far as if we're going to go through the advisor's report. However, I do believe that North Saanich is a true gem. We see how passionate our residents are, and I certainly will do everything I can to try and protect it. So I'll pass along to the Mayor now, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight.
Thank you. I will look at what got us here. Why I ran for council, or one of the reasons I ran for council, was when Modus showed up at Dean Park, which in round figures is 800 homes, and they limited our conversation to 10 residents only. So even if you take a 2-to-1 ratio for every residence, you're looking at minimum of 1,600 residents, and they allowed us 10 people. That's not consultation. And from that discussion, I realized they'd already made a decision. So I got involved in politics for the first time and ran. We are being criticized, which is the residents and council, by the CBRE report, that we did not consult properly with the residents for our new OCP. Yes, we did. And when I look back at that comment with regard to, my comment with regard to Modus, they did not. So we stand on the high ground with regard to engaging with our residents, engaging with council members as well. So I have a major problem with the CBR report. As I read a number of times now the CBR report, I'm reading a Modus report. And as a Modus report, the residents of North Saanich, to over 60%, voted no to the Modus report. So why are we going back to it, which is what we're being forced to by this province? My biggest concern right now obviously affects areas 1, 2, and 3. My numerous discussions with the Minister of Housing was, we don't have to worry about it in North Saanich, and because that is intended for a place like, and she said it each time, New Westminster. Well, we're not New Westminster. We're predominantly rural. We need to keep it rural. So when I look, or when we produced, in conjunction with the residents, the OCP, we meet and beat the requirements, what the province has been asking for. If we accept what the province is now saying, that we have to change our urban containment boundary and put in, I call it smooth, but it's not smooth, it's the six-story building and the rest, well, not so much the six-story, but the much higher densities in areas 1, 2, and 3. I look at it, what's the urgency by the government? Right now, we know, in my discussions with the CRD, staff's discussions with the CRD, to change the urban containment boundary is not simply a minor change. It takes approximately 2 years. The CRD right now is reviewing a major review of the regional growth strategy. That's anticipated to take also approximately 2 years. So one of the requirements, or two of the requirements for the much higher density that they're asking for in those three locations is, one, we have to move the urban containment boundary. Two, there has to be an increase in transportation within North Saanich for a minimum where there's at least a bus every 15 minutes or less. We have discussed this twice with MOCPAC meetings. Twice we've had BC Transit speak to us as residents through those committees. The first time they told us that they're not going to look at North Saanich with regard to a change in transit, a change of frequency for 20 years. The second time they came, it says it's 20/30 years. Being around the government for so long, 20/30 means 30. So why are we being forced to make these changes with regard to the urban containment boundary when, if we believe what the province is saying with regard to its mandates on transportation of, again, 15 minutes or less, when it's 20, 30 years down the road? So what's the rush? Secondly, I know, thirdly or fourthly, whatever you want to call it, with regard to the CBRE report, they've ignored the legislation and regulation that the province has put together with distances from transportation hubs. It could be 400 meters, 500 meters, or 600 meters. What the CBRE report actually says in a certain area, in Area 3, we go beyond the 600 meters, which is the maximum. So again, why are they doing that? So that goes against the province's own legislation and regulations. So I thought I'd stop there, because otherwise I'll be on a rant again.
Councillor Di Battista, would you like to say something now?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, at this point, I'm not gonna make any type of broad, sweeping comments. we all know how we got here. We all know what's before us. And I think at this point, we have to make some decisions. And that decision starts with how we're going to respond to the province. So if we're going to start to move conversation to the draft letter that our staff have prepared for us, I've got some comments about that and some suggestions about wording and things we should consider. But I have no broad sweeping statements. I think it's readily apparent to the public where we are and how we got here. So.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Marshall, did you have your hand up? Sorry, I did.
Do you want to say something first, or do you want to end? Is it okay if I go?
It's okay. Yeah, I'll wait for you.
I want to take your turn if you wanted to say it first. I understand where Councillor DePetisse is talking about getting into that letter, but just before we do, I echo most of Mayor Jones's comments, as do many people here. The CBRE report, thank you very much for answering the question that the resident asked. I'm concerned about some of the material that's in there as well. I know that in our letter, we are correcting the record for anything that is factually incorrect, and there are things in there that are incorrect. So it's concerning that that has somehow made its way into that report. So I'm glad that we are going to correct that, or at least the letter says we're going to. But I think as we look at the letter and we consider the decisions we're going to make, we have to think about what the unintended consequences are. It's easy to say, just build all this housing, people are going to come, they're going to be able to pay for it. We don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the transit, it affects our policing, our fire services, what apparatus do we need, what do those costs look like? It affects our green space, our parks, what our role is in the peninsula. So it is important that, for me anyways, as we go forward, I need to consider all of that in the decisions we're making. It's not as simple as just saying, let's develop in these areas. The decisions we make have impacts. And the donut economic framework that Councillor Shrivastava referred to, that is by council resolution endorsed by this council as a framework we use to make decisions. So when we're looking at what we're going to do here, we need to consider what that means in this framework. So I appreciate the comment on that, Councillor Sanjeev. And for me, I take that quite seriously. And I think that's where our conversations also have to be considered in regard to this framework. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marshall. And Councillor Shrivastava, did you want to say a few more things? And then we'll move on to discussion of the letter, I think.
Yeah, I'll give a
yes.
A quick comment. The draft letter to the Minister of Housing that you see in tonight's package, that was gratefully put together by staff, and they did a good job of doing it. That was put together for the public to see, but at the same time for us as councillors to see. So what's going to happen with that is that we, certainly as councillors, we're going to take the comments that have been made here, also our own with regard to what we would like to see, because we have to be careful in dealing with the province. Having worked as a lobbyist for over 20 years with the provincial government, you don't embarrass the government. You have to work with them. So in working with them, you have to find a happy medium of being a pushback and simply don't go too far. So what is going to happen now is that we've listened to you as the public, we've received a whole pile of emails, and the council itself will be discussing it. So in the next 2 weeks, what we'll be doing is producing, in conjunction with staff, a new draft that you as the public will get to see again. And that's going to be in approximately 2 weeks if the timeline falls in. So please don't think that you've done talking to us. No, we're still going to be looking for your input. It's extremely important. But what that new draft will consider, what's been discussed here by you as residents, also discuss what councillors got their own views with regard to it, and also any help we get to assist us. So please be, again, I'll say it, this is not the end. We're still looking for consultation with the residents, and we value that consultation.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Mayor. And would you like to say something now, Councillor Shrivastava?
Thank you. Okay, just to continue, that the council's principal concern is not with any individual directive in isolation, but with the cumulative effect of implementing numerous significant policy changes simultaneously. Collectively, the proposed directive would reduce minimum lot size, expand subdivision opportunities, increase residential density, reduce parking requirement, expand accessory residential development, increase delegated planning authorities, potentially facilitate further urban containment expansion. Each initiative may be reasonable when considered independently. However, when implemented concurrently, they represent a substantial shift in the growth model contemplated by the district's recently adopted OCP. To date, the Council has not seen a comprehensive assessment demonstrating how the combined measure will affect water and wastewater service capacity, transportation network and emergency access, stormwater management and watershed health, ecological corridors and biodiversity, agriculture interface and regional food security, municipal infrastructure finances, long-term municipal fiscal sustainability, climate adaptation objectives, both that are required by the CRD and by the province's own mandate. So these are some of the challenges at the core that are implemented. If we look at the donut framework, which looks at the social foundation as well as the ecological ceiling, currently the OCP addresses issues of health and wellness within a sustainable, positive direction. However, with what is being proposed, it actually creates loss of green space, higher traffic, and parking conflicts which affect physical and mental health, especially for adult population or older population. More housing supply certainly there are opportunities, but the rural content limits limited transit and reduced parking increases vehicle dependency and congestion. And given the age of the demographics, we find that they are more likely to be using private vehicles or means of transportation than public transit. I'll stop at that and then continue later as we go through with each of the directives.
Thank you very much, Councillor Schuerstadt. I don't know if any council member wants to make any motions at all right now, or if there are no motions, we could, I'm looking at the time, it's already 9 o'clock, and we have to move into our regular council meeting. Yeah, yes, staff, could you assist us with that? Are there any motions that would be required with regard to the draft letter, which is on the agenda, letter to the province, our response?
Thank you. As the staff report kind of outlines, any amendments that council wishes to kind of put forward that would assist in the drafting would be helpful. But as Mayor Jones indicated, the 2 weeks that we have now will be an opportunity for us to take all the public input, include written and at tonight's public participation, and integrate that into a draft. But if there are some specific inclusions that council wishes to make clear to the mayor and staff as we endeavor to draft this second version of the letter, that would be very helpful. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Monroe. And then taking it back to what Councillor DiBattista said, that he would have some comments. Would you like to make them now, Councillor DiBattista, or do you want to, I guess all of us will be emailing our comments on that letter over the next week or so? Pardon me? Yes, as well as residents. So I don't know if you would like to say anything now, Councillor DiBattista, or are you going to send your comments in as residents and we all are over the next, say, 10 days, 12 days?
Well, thank you, Chair. I'm going to reserve my comments. I'll wait till we see a revised version of this draft and then provide some more feedback. I've taken pages and pages of notes tonight, so thank you everybody for that. And yeah, I'll just wait to see what the revised letter looks like.
Okay, thank you very much.
Because some people in the audience were mentioning things with regard to services, a warning for us, which residents got to look at and staff and council have got to look at. We look at Langford. They've had basically 3 years of 15% increases in property tax, not compounded. And the major reason for that is because previous councils in Langford built but didn't increase the necessary police increase. They only got involved with the firefighters when the insurance companies came to them and said, you don't have enough firefighters. So either you're not going to get insured or your insurance is going to skyrocket. So Langford had to hire police force, more people in the police force, more people in their fire department. That is a key reason why they had basically three consecutive years of 15% increases. If North Saanich was forced to do that, we've got a similar problem. And other municipalities as well that are small municipalities that don't generate too much in the way of revenues. There's something else that's called consumption of services. There's one of the cities in the Lower Mainland 10 years ago, there was a consumption of services done. And what that in a simplistic form, they looked at for every, and these are round numbers, for every $1,000 of revenue, property taxes received from Class 1, which is residential, they were spending $2,000 a year to service those residents. Now, they can afford it, and the reason they can afford it is they've got a huge Class 6. Now, Class 6 is business or other, and Class 4, which is major industry. We've got very, very little Class 6. We've got no Class 4. And they're also what's called Class 2, which is utilities. They've got a huge utilities at about 40 mil. We've got tiny utilities. So we don't have the ability as a municipality to absorb as taxpayers what this province is asking us to do with regard to not fully funding, even if we were to build the houses that they need. I have my doubts on it, again, because of cost. So I wanted to bring that forward because, as I said, there was a number of people who were saying about with regard to property taxes and how do we afford it. Anyway, thank you.
I think, Mayor, also, as we're one of the municipalities in British Columbia who has a very stellar record with regard to reserves, we've been very good. I mean, I think that, and we've even won awards for it. Yeah, and I think that helps us a lot.
We don't want the province to know that.
No, but I think they probably already are aware of it. And so, but still, the monies are not going to pay for the type of infrastructure that's required for the type of development they're asking us for. But, you know, and for years, people on this council, not just me, but all the other councillors who've been on council with me over the years, we've all said, yes, we can have some development in North Saanich, but we don't have either the sewers or the drainage or any of the capacities that you require to have a lot of urban development. And that's still the case. And what really struck me, I just want to say this in the CBRE report, is they don't start off with, and several people mentioned this evening, and it really hit me. It just says the District of North Saanich is not meeting the housing targets. But it doesn't speak in this report to you know, how much housing do we require? Or I think we do require housing, obviously, but I think we have to achieve a fine balance between having some more housing. And I think all of us around the table have discussed this together, including Councillor Di Battista, and not overwhelming our rural and nature and our farms and our ALR land. And not to forget that I think, what is it, 30%, Mayor, of our land is federal. It's 91 lands belongs to the federal government. We have no authority over it. So, yes, Councillor Marshall.
Actually, just a question to you, Chair. So maybe we could just touch on what the process is moving forward so the public is aware. We've talked about drafting another letter, but I think the community needs to be aware. Is there another opportunity for them to see the new draft, and maybe just walk through what the process is going forward?
Yes, Councillor Marshall, although it wasn't quite clear to me or to any of us, I don't think at this moment. I did mention in the beginning the Horizon report from the meeting about how we've asked for a 2-week extension. And so that letter will go out tomorrow, July 14th, to the minister. And then we have 2 weeks. The process will be if councillors and residents want to send in their comments. I'm not sure what the process is, whom they should send the comments to. Would it be to corporate services? And if so, or should it be to your office, Mayor, and or corporate services? Okay.
If it goes to corporate services, then we can be assured then that it'll get on the agenda. Sometimes what happens if you send it directly to me, it gets buried in junk.
In your emails, yes. Okay.
And if I don't check my junk email, it gets missed.
All right, so there you have it. So emails to corporate services. Does everybody have the corporate service email? You can find it online, I think. It's there online on our website. Yes?
Sorry, that's all fine and dandy, but could we have dates? When do we have to respond? How much time?
Oh, dates, yes. Okay, well, if we receive the 2-week extension, that would take us to July 28th.
When's the next council meeting?
The next council meeting, well, we'll have to have a special council meeting because the next council meeting's not scheduled until August 17th.
I think what members of this audience would like to hear is, can we get a timeline as to who we should be reporting to, when, next meeting, or maybe staff could do that in the next 2 days?
What he said is that he thinks we should have a timeline and that staff should notify residents. I'm not sure how he would do that or how staff would do that, of the timeline and the timing they have to send in their comments.
Yeah. First of all, we've already got a lot of comments, but additional comments should be sent in the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
The more time that staff and council has to look at it, the more we can input it into what we're looking at. Again, we will provide the district letter to the minister by that date, assuming that, of course, that they give us the extension, which they're highly likely to do. Where the timeline becomes more difficult is when we respond to the minister, how fast will the minister respond herself? Could it be a week? Could it be 2 weeks? Who knows? What we do know, as an example, they had the CBRE report in, I believe it was March of this year, and they didn't provide it to us until very recently. So they spent a number of months holding that report without sending it to us. We do not have a reason why they took that length of time. So what council will probably be asked to do is that if we see the minister delaying things, then we push it because we just can't keep on waiting and waiting and waiting. And, you know, this council will, on behalf of the residents, stand up for the residents. That's both working with the government, but also if the government doesn't work with us, challenging the government. And there are ways of doing that.
Oh, yes. I think that our Chief Administrative Officer would like to say something.
Yes, thank you, through the
Thank
chair. So I just might suggest that we will be writing to the minister tomorrow, asking for a 2-week extension. That's from the 17th, so that we're asking for our new deadline to be the 31st. So I would expect that council would probably look within that week of July 27th for another council meeting. So what I might suggest that council consider is asking for written feedback to be received by corporate services by July 22nd, and then we ensure that we can incorporate that feedback into the draft that's presented to the public again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Monroe. Did everyone in the audience hear that? That comments be sent in by July 22nd? Yes, sir.
My comment is there's people who would like to respond that aren't here. Can you put this on your website so that we know what the timeline is?
I can't really. Okay. Yes. Yes, we can certainly do that, that timeline that they have their comments in by July 22nd. It's a good idea. Do we need a motion? No? Okay. That's all right. So we don't need a motion for that, so that's what will occur. Councilor Di Battista, did you have your hand up? Sorry, did I miss you?
No.
No.
Good. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Does anybody else? Councilor Marshall, are you wanting to say? Oh. All right, so then we don't have any other motions associated or affiliated with this agenda, so we should move on to, we should adjourn the meeting.
Just got a question.
Sorry, Councilor Shrivastava.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a question. Because we'll be working on the draft again, so the comments that I have with regards to the framework that's in the OCP, should that be discussed now or given to staff as an email?
I think it should be given to staff as an email perhaps, or did you, I think that might be the most efficient.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest, because we have a period to do that. And what may even happen, as an example, if staff so decides, that could be posted on the website as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And how is that count? Do you concur with that?
Perfectly. Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. So here we are. We're at adjournment. Unless staff, have I missed anything as chair at the moment? Oh, yes. I've missed the following correspondence pertaining to this item, which is unfinished business C. Do we need to consider? I think that was considered to be part of the discussion, was it not? Yes, okay, answer is yes, so we're fine. So then I'd like to have and require a motion of adjournment for the Committee of the Whole. Yes, the Mayor, okay. And all in favor of adjourning Committee of the Whole? Okay, so that decision's unanimous. So we can move on to the regular council meeting. Oh, yes, let's take a little 5-minute break for people to stretch their legs or use the facilities. Thank you. All right. I think we can call the meeting to order now. So I'd like to call the regular meeting of council on Monday, July 13th, 2026 to order. We have introduction of late items. Yes, Mayor?
I have one late item, which is a verbal late item to go into item, where is it? Motions and new business, item 9. So this will be 9.1.
Okay.
And I'll give a little bit, because it's a verbal, it'll need a vote of council.
Right.
To add it to the agenda. And the reason for it is that it's got time sensitivity, and it's with regard to the working groups of the committees to rescind the suspension of those working groups and get them working again.
Okay, and you mean like the hub working group and those kind of
example,
things?
and the tree bylaw working group and I think
Okay.
the seniors.
All right, so anything else to add to the late items besides the mayor's verbal report and the ones we have already? No? So then I'd like to have a motion, please, with regard to approval of the agenda, including the late items and the mayor's verbal report. Councillor McConkey?
Yeah, second it.
And seconded by Mayor Jones. All those in favor? Okay. Public participation period of the regular council meeting. Does anybody wish to speak at the public participation period? You do? Okay. Just a minute, I just have to find what I have to read for you. Sorry. I know it's here.
It's normally there?
No, oh yes, it's right here. Thank you, I knew it was around here somewhere. So I have to read the rules of procedure. Persons wishing to address council must state their name and municipality of residence for identification, and also the topic involved. Questions and comments must be on topics which are not normally dealt with by municipal staff as a matter of routine. Questions and comments must be addressed through the chair, and answers given likewise. Debates with or questions of individual council members will not be allowed. No commitments shall be made by the chair in replying to a question. Matters which may require action of the council shall be referred to a future meeting of the council. Each speaker during public participation period, A, must use respectful language and refrain from making offensive gestures or signs, and B, is limited to speaking for 3 minutes unless authorized by the chair to speak for a longer period of time. And the 20 minutes will be allotted for the public participation period unless extended by a vote of council. So, welcome and please proceed.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Lori Lumley, and I am a resident of North Saanich. You may look at me and say you look familiar. I spoke at your last council meeting.
Yes.
I am a resident of North Saanich, and I am also a legal or an operator of a short-term short-term rental business, pardon me, in North Saanich. I quickly jotted down some notes. I wasn't going to speak, but I appreciate this opportunity because I think it might be prudent at this time. I first off want to thank you for your motion to defer the license enforcement on short-term rentals that you had passed at your last council meeting. As you will hear tonight from Mr. Kalinda, this act of support will not reach its goal, unfortunately. That will allow us to continue to operate while we transition to a new regulatory framework that supports short-term rentals here in North Saanich. We operators here in North Saanich are trapped in a regulatory gap between a new zoning bylaw and regulatory framework that does regulate short-term rentals and has passed first reading with an aggressive provincial body that is the short-term rental registry, pardon me. We do ask, however, for your continued support during this implementation delay as your new zoning bylaw passes through the next subsequent readings. And again, I want to reiterate our appreciation. Mr. Kalinda's proposal to permit operators to apply for a temporary use permit, which is what he will be proposing shortly, is very much welcomed by us operators here in the district, as it does allow us to continue to operate and to welcome our guests this summer. However, the temporary use permit, I understand, is quite onerous. It's time-consuming, and it is very burdensome on staff, I would presume. And it also comes at a very heavy cost of $2,000 for this temporary solution to the problem. I would respectfully ask Council to direct staff to seek a streamlined temporary use permit process that is not an administrative burden on staff, and that it includes an appropriate fee structure that is proportionate to the temporary situation that we all face as operators here. If Council cannot adjust the fee in your fees bylaw, I would respectfully ask that you consider directing staff to hold our temporary use permit fees of $2,000 in trust, and that upon final enactment of the business bylaw, which I would presume would follow in short order after the new zoning bylaw, and would include a short-term rental provision, that the TUP, the temporary use permit, application fee be retroactively adjusted to match the new STR, short-term rental fee schedule, with the balance being refunded to the applicant of the temporary use permit. And that was all I wanted to ask. Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other residents or people in the audience who would like to speak in public participation? I'll ask a second time. Are there any other residents who would wish to speak?
You don't have to ask a second time. Only in the cow.
I wanted to anyway.
Okay.
All right, so seeing no one, I'll close the public participation period. And we move on to number 5 on our agenda, adoption of council minutes. So, yes, Mayor.
As read?
You're proposing a motion to adopt them both as read?
As read.
Okay. We need a seconder?
Yes. Yep.
Councillor Marshall seconds.
Thank you.
All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Yeah. Where's Phil?
Is Councillor Di Battista there? Did I? Yes.
Through the chair, he is having a hard time with his internet connection.
Oh, okay.
We're hoping he'll make it, but we're not sure yet.
Okay. I was just hoping I didn't forget, miss him or something. Sorry about that. Okay. So we've done that. Now we're on to reports. So 6A. 6A. But the first one has been removed from the agenda. Yeah. The first item, the rezoning application, it will be placed on a future agenda. The placement is not known at the moment, but it will be on a future agenda. Roman numeral 2. Yes? Yes, Councillor McConkey.
Thank you, Chair, and through the Chair to staff. Is there a reason why this was removed, as it was identified in the Housing Minister's report and letter from the Minister? Thank you.
Yes, to staff, then I'm not sure. Thank you, Councillor McConkey.
Yeah, perhaps I can answer that. Yeah, the applicant was concerned about absences on council and wasn't sure which way the vote would go. It's really kind of a funny situation because you're already at third reading, and we asked the applicant to get a Section 219 covenant. to have in hand before we get the fourth and final. And she did, in fact, get that 219 covenant. It took her quite a bit of time to get to there. In any event, she felt that because there were going to be some absences at the table, she wanted it pulled, which is completely her right, of course, you know.
All right, thank you very much. So, Councillor McConkey, is that, would you like to ask another question?
No, I was just going to say thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't the district that was delaying the application, seeing that had been identified previously. Thank you.
All right, so there we have it. Now we're moving on to the 2026 Quarter 1 and 2 Monitoring Report. Corporate Services.
Through the chair, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
All right, thank you very much. So, council, do you have questions for Corporate Services on the Quarter 1 and 2 Monitoring Report? Yes, Councillor Shrivastava.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to staff. I was looking at the FOIs of 18 requests received. That's similar to what we had last year. A question I have is, would you be able to provide any information if it's not under confidential issue? If the people asking for the FOIs, are they 18 different identities, or are they multiple folks, single folks asking for multiple FOIs?
Through the chair, I can answer that question. So of the 18, it is 15 applicants.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If I may, through the chair, ask an additional question?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. I do see that we do have sustainability and climate change impact. And at the same time, the district has, through its strategic plan and the OCP, adopted the ISO 37000 governance process framework, as well as the donut economic framework. There has been no reference done into this in terms of a reporting mechanism. Is there a rationale for that at this point in time?
Through the chair, no, I don't have an explanation for that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I would like to have a motion or on the recommendation, the staff recommendation. Councillor Marshall?
Sure. I'll move that council receive staff report number CS 26031, 2026 Quarter 1 and 2 Monitoring Report, Corporate Services for information.
Thank you very much. Seconding? Councillor McConkey seconds. All those in favor? It's passed unanimously.
Through the chair.
Oh.
I haven't.
Sorry.
I'm not voting in favor of this, given that one of our requirement from the strategic plan is not in there.
All right, sorry. So the vote is 4-1. Sorry, I forgot about Councillor DiBattista. 4-1, and Councillor Shrivastava is voting no. All right, now we're on to financial update for 2026 quarters 1 and 2. And there's a staff report from Ms. Webster, Barb Webster. And would you have anything to add?
Nothing to add. I think the report has got quite a bit of detail in it, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Webster. And Councillor Shrivastava has some questions.
Thank you very much, Chair. Actually, for a change, it's not a question, it's to I really appreciate that in your Appendix 3, you have given a rationale of what each of the different operating funds are. So thank you very much. It does inform the public to a significant amount of what the different categories are. Yes, I do recollect a speaker saying earlier that it would be useful to have more details, but as a good start, thank you.
Does anyone else around the table have any comments or questions? No, so I appreciate having a motion on the recommendation that we receive it, the financial update. Councillor Marshall.
Barely looking at me, okay.
There you go.
That council received the financial update for 2026 quarters 1 and 2, staff report number FIN 2616 for information.
All right, thank you. And who wishes to second that? The mayor. Mayor Jones seconds it. Call the vote. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Move on to number 4, Roman numeral 4, 2026 mid-year investment portfolio review. Staff report from Ms. Webster, Barb Webster, Director of Financial Services.
Thank you. This is a mid-year review that our investment policy requires a report back to council just to check in as to where we are partway through the year, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Shrivastava.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask with regards to the SRI investment that the district had started in March of 2023. How is that in principle comparing to the standard investment portfolios? So just as a comparison, too.
So we're noticing less of those offerings coming to us to be able to select on renewals on turnovers of term deposits. And I don't specifically have an answer to that other than, the market drives that. So for whatever reason, those offerings are not coming our way to be able to take advantage of those. And so they are what they are at this point as far as what we're able to take advantage of.
Just a follow-up on that through the chair. So are you rethinking of investing that into a different portfolio or just maintaining the existing portfolio?
As each term deposit comes up, I'm given a choice between a number of different term deposits, but very rare now do I get an option for an SRI. It's not even being brought forward for me to even select. So the market is not bringing those forward as an option for me to even consider.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions, Councillor McConkey, you didn't have a question, no? Okay, then I'd like to receive a motion for council receiving the 2026 mid-year portfolio review. Councillor McConkey makes the motion, seconded by Mayor Jones. Call the vote. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. We're now on to Roman numeral 5, Q1 and Q2 2026 work plan update, financial services and information technology. We're not there yet. No, we're on Roman numeral 5. No. It's okay. So I was just asking for, a motion, a recommendation on number 5, Q1 and Q2 work plan update.
In that case, motion is as read.
Okay, so Mayor Jones is making the motion. Councillor McConkey, are you seconding? Yes, Councillor McConkey is seconding. And so all those in favor? Oh, sorry. All right, I was given a challenge.
Sorry. Through Chair, just a quick question. Thank you. Through the Chair, is the district planning, given that we're talking about IT, information technologies, and associated with that are electronic products, is there any planning coming forward in terms of extending the life of electronic products that we have, like laptops, computers, and the rest? Because I know even the province has changed its every 3-year greening process, and they're going for retaining their electronics for a much longer period of time.
Thank you for the question through the chair. Currently, we have a warranty period on what we just did a desktop replacement last year. I believe it's 3 years, but we tend to hang on to them for 5. And then as they, we'll reassess as we get closer to that time, whether they're holding up or not, or whether it's time to make a change. So we're just at the beginning of the next cycle, and we'll monitor that as we go along.
Just through the chair, if I may continue on that. With regards to the software, we know that there are tendencies occurring in other parts of the world where there are shifting from Microsoft products to a Linux-based products, which is still also user-driven, thereby not having major cost saving in terms of licensing fee and the rest. Is there a project that the district will be going towards and aiming to introduce on pilot basis, such a scheme?
Thank you for the question. Not at this time.
Just final, and this is for general public. I'm using a district laptop. I have moved to a Linux-based software, and one thing is for sure, I can do everything that needs to be done on Windows. Maybe it is time, in the interest of saving taxpayers some dollars, that we start thinking of migrating to a non-US-based software. So, thank you.
But you're just making that as a suggestion to move to Linux. Linux. En français, c'est Linux. Anyway, all right. Where was I?
Motion as read.
Yes, number 5, Q1 and Q2, the work plan update, and
There's a motion as read
and the
seconded.
motion as read, Councillor McConkey seconded. So all those in favor? All right, so that passes unanimously. Now we're on to the 2 council liaison reports, one from Councillor Di Battista, one from Councillor McClintock.
My favorite ones. My motion as read on item 1.
All right, and who would second that? Councillor Marshall seconds. Call the vote. All those in favor?
Okay.
And then,
Item 2 as
yes.
read.
Okay, as read.
Sorry, through the chair, we skipped past the late item, which was the staff report.
Oh.
Which was renumbered. Apologies.
A staff report?
6. Yeah, on the temporary use permits.
Yeah.
Oh, in late items, sorry, I forgot. I read the late items and then I forgot about them. Apologize, okay. Short-term rental update, staff report. All right. Sorry that I passed over your report.
That's quite all right, Acting Mayor and Council. This will be my first report as Interim Director of Planning and Community Services, and it's going to be mercifully short. We're looking for a bridge to allow short-term rental operators who are not operating their STRs in a bed and breakfast. We're looking for a bridge to allow them to continue to operate over the summer. And the purpose of your motion on June 29th was to waive enforcement of the business bylaw for the purposes of giving those operators a bridge. We worked with the short-term rentals branch to figure out what is the best technique to create this bridge. The best technique is for these operators to apply for a temporary use permit application. That application then would be sent to the short-term rentals branch, and that will satisfy their needs as documentation to service the notice of consideration that these STR operators have gotten. So I can answer questions if you want, but otherwise, if you would pass the motion at the top of page 14, then I think we can get this fixed by the end of the week.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to staff, just a question. I believe somebody asked about that $2,000 fee and asked if it was possible for it to be kept in trust, and then once the business license bylaw is passed, if there's a reduction in that cost, if they can be refunded that. Is that a possibility?
So I'm going to encourage the applicant to simply pay the fee, and I'm pretty sure I can get most of it refunded by the end of the day. Just make the application, do what you're supposed to do, and I'm pretty sure you'll get most of it back.
Okay, so we can add that in the motion then, that we will hold that $2,000 in trust, and then once that bylaw is passed, we'll look at refunding that. Is that possible to put in the motion?
Well, here's...
I think Ms. Monroe, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you through the chair. So I think it would be helpful to get some council direction, but what I might commit to is that council direct staff to explore and report back to council on the ability to refund that. I wouldn't feel comfortable in committing to that right now. We'll just have to ensure that I don't want to be in breach of our fee is in a bylaw right now, so I just want to ensure that we can do that and report back to council. But that council direction would be appreciated, and then we can take that and explore an ability to do that and report back to council.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. That's what I'm asking. So I think that does it. But so if somebody has to pay the $2,000 while we're investigating that, is there a way to make that retroactive? So if people come forward and pay the $2,000 while we're looking at if there is a possibility to hold that in trust, is there a way that they could be included? If the answer is yes, can they be included as well? Did that make sense? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Through the chair, so anyone that will have paid from now on, like now forward, yes. Yeah. Just as long as it's clear that, yeah, and we just have to know the appropriate mechanism, and that just to make sure that we're legislatively correct in holding and it's more the refund portion, yeah.
So given that new information, how do we'd have to put that into a motion and I think, yeah.
I can, do you want me to make the motion? Do we want to start with that motion? That the council directs staff to look at the possibility of holding the $2,000 temporary use permit fee in trust. And once the business bylaw is in place, if the amount is different, refunding that to the applicant. So it's directing staff to look into that possibility.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Marshall. I'm looking at our chief administrative officers and our corporate officers. Is that sufficient? Is that fine? Okay. So you're making that motion. Who would like to second it? Councillor Shrivastava? Okay. So we'll hold the vote. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Now, what else do we have to do on the short-term rental?
We need that motion at the top of page 14, please. I can read it if you wish.
See, I'm still in the late items.
Yeah.
Hang on a sec. I don't know where it is. Have you got it?
Oh, it didn't come in there, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so here we are. It's that council received the staff report and that council directs staff. That's the one you want?
Yes, that's it, exactly.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
who's willing to make that motion? Councillor McConkey, seconded by Mayor Jones. Any questions or discussion? It's right there.
So, through the chair, just a question. Do we know how many of the current operators are not eligible to meet the TUP?
I think there's only 3 that will benefit from the TUP,
Correct.
and as far as I know, at the moment, and as far as I know, they are all eligible, you know?
Thank you.
So, maybe just to explain, there's one operator, I think B&B by the Sea, who was able to qualify through a business license. So he's looked after now. He's good, but the other operators do not qualify for a business license, so they need the TUP mechanism to qualify at STR branch.
Thank you very much.
So does anybody else have any questions or comments or discussion? No? All right, so all those in favor of the motion? All right,
We need an extension.
it's unanimous.
We need an extension, Chair.
Oh, yes, it's 10 to 10. And somebody needs to make a motion that we have an extension in case we go over time.
I'll pass you talk to Peter. You do it 10.
I'll go in that chair. It'll be over in 2 minutes.
I'll make a motion to extend to 10 after 10.
Okay, thank you very much. Seconded by Mayor Jones. All those in favor? Unanimous. So we're extended to 10 after 10. All right. So now, the correspondence from the CRD regarding municipal consent. That's the second item on my late items for this meeting. And it's with regard to the recreation facility loan. And so the recommendation that staff wants us to make is that we consent or not consent to the CRD adoption bylaw 4782 for the Saanich Peninsula Recreation Services loan authorization bylaw.
Through Chair.
Yes.
It's,
Hi, Chair. I think that we are on motions and new business right now.
Yeah.
Before correspondence.
So we're off the late, because that's on this page right after the one we just voted on.
No, that's 8A, 8D.
Yes.
Which you just read. We are still in take council.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we didn't finish that. All right, we were going to vote on the council liaison reports because Mayor Jones had made the motion as read. Councillor McConkey seconded it.
Yep.
So then we were going to have the vote. So all those in favor?
Okay, and item 2.
And item 2.
Motion as read.
All right.
Seconded.
Councillor McConkey seconds. Sure. Yes, Councillor McConkey seconds. So all those in favor? Unanimous. All right. Now, motions and new business. This is the verbal update from Mayor Jones on the working groups.
Yep, just got to find what the motion is again, I mentioned to it, is we've got some time-sensitive issues, as an example, with the Harvest Hub, that there's some decisions that to be made, and those decisions are a combination of staff and also the committee that is, the working group that is working on the Food Hub. So what I'm looking at is then that the motion is that the suspension of the working group, that the Food Hub working, I don't know if I got the names right, correct me if I'm wrong, the Food Hub working group, the Tree Bylaw working group, and the Seniors working group, that the suspension be lifted, immediately, and that those working groups report directly to the liaison that is responsible for the committee they're on, and the liaison will then report up to council. And that will continue until the committees themselves, the suspension is lifted. And once their suspension is lifted, we'll go back to the report to the committees. That's a long motion. You guys get it? Yep, thank you.
Okay, so then who would second that motion, Mayor? You will. Councillor Shrivastava seconds it. Discussion? Questions, comments? Councillor McConkey.
Thank you, Chair, and through the Chair to the Mayor. So is there any process in place as far as these committees? Because last time it came before the Planning Committee, there was not much information. So you incept these, but what is the process going forward? How are these committees going to shake out? Or pardon me, the working group's going to shake out? Thank you. Because the tree bylaw one, which would come under me, had never had any meetings or any inception. The other two, or certainly the Food Hub one has. So how's that going to play out? Thank you.
How I anticipate playing out is that the Food Hub one, or the Harvest Hub one, obviously is ongoing. The tree bylaw one and the seniors bylaw one, then the mayor will have to get involved and actually structure when they would meet, and together with staff how they would operate.
Thank you, and through the Chair to the Mayor. And is there a timeline identified for that?
Well, I'll have it in place for at least the next council meeting.
Thank you.
I think, would our staff like to comment as well on the working groups?
Thank you, through the Chair. Yeah, I'll just add that historically the working groups have been they operate primarily through organization headed usually by the council liaison and the chair, I believe, of the working group and the staff liaison. However, I believe that the structure of these two working groups are structured a little bit differently with members of the committee. So the staff resources is typically that we will have someone reach out to us and ask if staff can accommodate a room booking. But there are no terms of reference with respect to these working groups, and they largely are operated without staff support with respect to organizing meetings, reaching out to everyone. So just to provide a little bit of clarity, just based on how the Harvest Hub working group has operated.
Yeah, we'll be following the same methodology. Yeah.
So, Mayor, what you're saying is that for the other two, they'll be operating on the same principles as the Harvest Hub working group?
Correct.
Okay, just so. Which means basically that it's elected officials in a sense, like calling meetings and organizing. Right.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it is at the call of the chair. So the council liaison is the chair of the working group, and the meetings are at the call of the chair.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify that for those of us who, are not as involved, so in those committees or those working groups. So thank you very much. Thanks. All right, so anything else on the verbal update, Mayor?
Nope, just need a vote.
Okay.
Unless there's any further questions.
Oh, are there further questions? No? Okay, so all those in favor? Okay. And now we're on to no, what about the late?
It's correspondence.
Yes, it's correspondence, but.
A, B, C, and then D.
All right, so that's where this one goes, okay. I just couldn't fit this one in. All right, so we're on correspondence, 8A. It's correspondence from R. Kerr regarding power outages in North Saanich. So what is the...
I can give you just a little bit of an update. I did a week and a half ago contact BC Hydro and ask them for an explanation. I've never received a call back.
Yes.
So I don't know if we can ask staff to also try.
Thank you for the question.
Ms. Webster, Barb.
Thank you for the question. I heard on the radio BC Hydro reporting out as to why North Saanich is getting all these outages, and it was part of their maintenance plan, and rejigging the wires made the system a little more sensitive to when they were out tree trimming, and so they're beyond that now. So, and we've noticed no power outages since then. So they've done that work.
Do you believe that?
Well, our power hasn't gone out since then, so.
BC Hydro is supposed to
say
notify if it's planned maintenance in advance. They don't just show up and say, oh, we're going to maintain that. But of course, there's nothing we can do about it, so we're not going to spend any time on it. So I can.
Yes, I think Councillor Shrivastava had something to say, no?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My main comment was this is what happens when you take buffer zones for trees out, that starts impacting what's going on. But at this point in time, I would just say that the staff reach out to the writer, telling them they would be in contact with BC Hydro.
Is that okay, staff? Yeah, oh, sorry, I'm not the chair.
Yes, so the recommendation here is that council receive the correspondence and direct staff. So you're saying direct staff to Mr. Kerr and say that, you know, we're trying to determine from BC Hydro what's happening. All right, so that's your motion. Who seconds it? Councillor Marshall seconds it. All those in favor? All right. Number B. Letter B, correspondence dated July 3rd, 2036 from the Capital Regional District regarding CRD bylaw 4761. And there's a recommendation from staff that we receive the correspondence and direct staff accordingly. Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, just, so when I read the letter, I think we have till September 30th to respond, and in the letter, they do offer to come out with a presentation, so I don't mind making a motion to ask the CRD to come and present on this bylaw. If somebody wants to second it, and maybe that's the way we can work through this.
Okay, so you're making that motion, and the mayor is seconding it. And so all those in favor? So that's a number B. Now we're at C, correspondence from R. Fimwright regarding traffic on Barrett Drive. So we've had a lot of discussion on the traffic on Barrett Drive. Yes, Ms. Monroe.
Thank you, through the chair. I do know that our Director of Infrastructure Services is engaged with some of the concerned residents and has reached out as well to our RCMP traffic liaison, and is working and is actually looking at some maintenance of the I guess boulevard greenery as well that is imposing some of the views. So he is engaged on this issue, and it would be reasonable just to, I mean, if council wishes to refer it back to staff for a response.
All right, so who'd like to make that motion? Councillor Shrivastava?
As said by the CEO, staff will respond to the letter writing.
All right, and seconded, Councillor McConkey. All right, so all those in favor? Passed unanimously. Now we're on to correspondence for councils. No, we're on to 8, the one in the late items. Yes, Councillor McConkey.
I believe we'll need another motion to extend, Chair. It's 10 past 10.
Ooh. All right, so we need another motion to extend because it's 10 past 10 already. Mayor Jones, you're making the motion?
Oh, sure. Motion for 15 minutes.
All right, for 15 minutes till pardon me, 10:25. Councillor Shrivastava seconds. All those in favor? Yes. Okay, so we're extended till 10:25. So does anybody from staff want to say anything, or do we just, no one?
Yeah.
How about discussion around the table?
I have a question. We have two tonight in front of us, one which is on page 179 that we already voted on. How does that relate to the late item one? We seem to be talking about the same number. It's a different bylaw number, 4782, as compared to 4761. Why two bylaws, and why are we being asked to approve one on a late item?
Through the chair, I believe the item dated July 2nd from the CRD was notification that a new bylaw was going to be coming forward.
Yes.
And then we received late on Friday the actual bylaw itself. So that's just for councils, and then now it's on the public agenda so the public can see it. So that's the difference between those two items. But I think we've already made a motion around inviting the CRD or the Panorama Rec Commission Center to come and present. So council could simply ask to defer this item to a future council meeting.
That's where I was going,
Yeah.
asking him to speak
Okay.
to us. Not only that, I'd like to have full council here, because this is an important one for the, because we're committing the residents. Whilst it's only, I think, 40 some odd dollars of, now it's still money.
Yes, that's true, although this particular loan bylaw is for far less money. I think we had started out a number of months ago at the Panorama Center with 50 million, and now it's down to 17.
No.
It's a loan bylaw for 17, isn't it?
No. The loan was originally going to be about 14 point something million. And then Sydney objected to it, and
Yes.
we delayed to see what
That's right.
Sydney would do. This one now is that it's come back at a lower amount, so they sharpened their pencils.
Yeah,
So
it
now
is.
it's 9 point something million, which of course reduces then the levy on
Yeah.
each residence.
I know it's quite a bit less because I was at the meeting where we went over all that. I thought it went down to like 14 or 17 million or something.
Yeah, that was a different one. That was
Okay.
major improvements. We're going to be, not we, but
It
future
costs so
councils.
much money for the recreation centers, it's amazing. Where it doesn't matter where you are. It's
So,
very expensive. So what do you want?
As staff suggested, I do a motion that we defer this to the next scheduled council meeting, and
Okay.
that we ask the CRD to come speak to us.
All right, perfect. So that's your motion, and we're asking CRD to come to speak
No, that's
to
not my
us.
motion. Of course it is.
All right, and who's seconding it? Councillor Marshall? All right, all those in favor? Passed unanimously. And now we go back to correspondence for council's information. I think so.
Just a consent res,
Pardon me?
just a consent resolution, A and B, and anything else that's added. Which I don't think there are any, so just consent res.
So I'll just
Okay.
move that correspondence receipt, or that council receive the correspondence.
Yeah.
Okay, who's seconding it? Mayor Jones? Okay, all those in favor? And now, are we at number 9? On the agenda, correspondence, Canadian Federation of University Women? Okay, so then it's rise and report.
Yep. There isn't one? Oh, is that the Rising report?
No, but I already did that at
Yeah, did that
the,
there's no Rising report.
at the cow.
Yeah,
This
there's
was
there's
at-
no Rising report.
No, there's no
Yeah.
rise and report, so we're at adjournment.
Yep.
I need a motion for adjournment. Mayor Jones, second. Councillor Shrivastava. All those in favor? All right, meeting's adjourned.
No, it didn't do bad. 1:15. That's good. Yep.